Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. One of the big questions in Rostermania right now is whether Scrappy will still be playing for Toronto next season. Most people believe that is going to be the case. He's going to be stuck there, and actually the team they're building with Envoy seems very competitive. But FaZe are apparently confident they can get Scrappy off that team. He's seemingly their ideal target for a fourth man. Are they completely living on another planet thinking they can get this deal done with what would be an absolutely mega buyout? Or could they put something together to actually get this move over the line? And if they could, how scary would that team be? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Lots going on today. And of course, with Shotzzy's birthday yesterday, we then got this here from Pred. Happy birthday, brother. Seems very likely at this point. I think Pred also pretty much confirmed on stream that he's signed the deal. You know, wherever he's signed, it signs, and he's locked in. And you'd expect things to happen relatively soon. OpTic have been one of these teams historically in Rostermania that takes their time announcing things. So it might be some time yet until we actually see OpTic Pred, the official announcement. But I think most people think that this is pretty much set in stone. The Drazah thing is a little bit up in the air. And speaking of Drazah, Los Angeles Thieves, I did want to have a few words on them here just because they're in a tough spot. It's an unenviable position to be Novus, the general manager of Thieves right now, trying to figure out what to do effectively on a budget. I saw some iterations of rosters flying around here on Reddit, just some ideas, and I think really you've got to start with the SMG line, and whether you still have Kenny on the sub or whether you don't, I don't mind either way, but I am of the opinion that having Kenny on the sub is probably what you want to keep doing, just because when Kenny is on point on the SMG, he is one of the best in the game, and you're not really going to find that much SMG talent on the market right now. There are some good options out there, and here are a couple that people have put together. Nero, for example, Capsule is being mentioned in here. I definitely think, you know, these are some of the top guys from a free agency perspective. Just to look at some of the other free agents here, we think that Standy is going to be joining that team with iLLeY and co, and outside of that, like, a lot of the top SMGs are getting locked up, right? I mean, we know that OpTic, Toronto, Subliners, FaZe, those pretty much are going to have the top 8 SMGs on paper in the game. Then you're getting down to, you know, Nero and Afro and, you know, players of this caliber, and, you know, obviously Huke, right? We think he might be going to that iLLeY team. Cap's done another one. So to me, I think Thieves need to try and find another player like Drazah, not just like in terms of Drazah's role, but when they brought Drazah in, he was definitely an underrated prospect in the league, right? And he became a phenomenal player over the couple of years. They kind of stood by him in some sense from the early Cold War days, changed the roles around. They need to find another player like Drazah who is currently being underrated a fair bit, and they can build into a player over the next year or so to actually be a championship winning team again. It's going to be tricky. That does involve some risk, but there are some players out there that I think they should at least look at. But I'm kind of the opinion that having Kenny on the sub is maybe the way to go, just because there's straight up more talent from an AR perspective that they could get. They could bring Slasher back. They could put Ghosty in. I think that'd be very interesting. But I definitely think Thieves have a difficult couple of decisions on their hands. There's even the likes of, you know, Attach and Cammy, right? Those guys from Rokkr that are completely unrestricted free agents that Thieves could look at if they think they can get the best out of those guys. So be interesting to see, like, you know, Afro, Cammy, Kenny, +1. I don't know, you know, which way they'd go with the final player on that team and what they want to do for roles. Maybe a bit of existing chemistry, right? But yeah, Thieves, it's going to take them a little bit of time to figure out what's going on here. But yeah, they are really in the mix in that midfield with many of the other teams. Now, Toronto are possibly still holding things up. So this has been the big question behind the scenes of the last couple of days, really. Is Scrappy going to stay on Ultra? Envoy seems to want to go to Ultra, and you would imagine there's no way he does that unless he's there with Scrappy. It's for less money, apparently, this Toronto spot, and Boston were giving him a good offer, and we'll actually see in a second here the team that Boston were proposing, which is a pretty good team on paper. So Envoy must have very good reason to turn that down and go to Toronto. Now, has he jumped the gun in the same way that Dashy did on OGLA back in the start of franchising, when he signed for OGLA thinking that OpTic Gaming Los Angeles was going to be OpTic and that Scump and Hex and Formal were going to come along? That wasn't the case. They went to Chicago Huntsman, and Dashy was like, oh no, please get me off this franchise now. So I don't think that Envoy would, like, jump the gun in that sense, but even if he hasn't signed a deal yet, possibly they could still work something out here for Scrappy. So the early rumor was in this Rostermania period that Ultra had run out of money and they were going to try and sell off Insight and CleanX, and these guys were going to go elsewhere, and then they were going to, you know, keep Scrappy around to hold him hostage basically and put a loaded team of challengers around him on 50k salaries, and that wouldn't have been good for anyone, to be honest. But apparently now, like, there's no rumours anymore, really, of CleanX going to Thieves or anything, then buying him out. Seems like they either found the money, or those rumours were just being started by different people internally at Ultra with their own different agendas, which has been the rumour that JoeDeceives has been throwing around, that things are just chaotic over there, but maybe they have the money now, and if they can get Envoy around, then, I mean, man, that team, Scrappy, Insight, CleanX, Envoy, like, that's pretty ideal, right? If you're going to try and upgrade Hicksy, Envoy's like the perfect guy to get, and they should get even better than they previously were. That's a really nice team. But Scrappy obviously would be wanted elsewhere, and given the way things are going with Pred and with Drazah going to OpTic, FaZe seemingly don't have Sib as their primary target, in the same way as last season, right? FaZe last year, their primary guy, I think their first target was probably Shotzzy. They couldn't get him. Then Insight was their second target. Slasher was like third or fourth, but they ended up with Slasher, right? And it didn't work out badly for them, but, you know, they did end up with certainly not their first option last season, to our understanding. This year, again, might be a similar story. Scrappy is probably FaZe's #1 pick, and maybe Drazah was, but it seems like he's going to OpTic now. So can they get this done? And this is the question, because there's been a lot of clips coming out, and most people seem to think, and sources seem to say that, yeah, this isn't going to happen. Toronto are going to keep hold of him. They usually have pretty high buyouts for their players, especially in this case, and FaZe would have to offer an absurd amount of money to get Scrappy off this team, I think, and Toronto might just say, you know what, straight up, we're not going to sell him to you, because I think they did the same thing last year with Insight when FaZe wanted him, and they were like, nah, he's not for sale. So possibly the same thing here again, and most people like Octane and Jacob Hale and, you know, Ronnie and stuff like this, they seem to think that this isn't going to happen and he's going to be staying on Ultra. But FaZe seem confident they can get him, or at least there is that rumor going around, because Zuma said 2 days ago now, and also kind of followed it up last night, saying that, yeah, this is like, it seems like that's the direction they're pointing here, right? That potentially, especially this first clip, where he's heavily implying that, are you sure, Octane, that Envoy's going there to team with Scrap, or could he be going potentially to FaZe? Zuma's, of course, pretty close to the FaZe camp. So, yeah, what do you guys think about this?
What's up, bro?
What happened to your teammate Envoy? He's going to the dark side?
Yeah, bro, he's going to team with Ernie Longneck, bro. What the fuck is this about?
I don't know about that.
That's some bullshit. I tried to tell him not to, but he just don't listen to me.
What do you mean he's teaming with Ernie Longneck? Are you sure about that?
I mean, could be, according to Jacob Hale, bro. Everything Jacob says is true.
Are you sure everything Jacob says is true?
Are you insinuating that it's not and you have intelligence that you're not sharing?
Of course. That's exactly what I'm insinuating, yo.
Oh, really?
Listen, man, hey, you
That's
never
crazy.
know. Up, like, you know, what does FaZe do? You know, like,
Yeah.
what kind of work? What are they going to do? Where do they go? I mean,
It's just the dominoes of like Sib, Ghosty, and Zach. It's just like they're just gonna get spread amongst the top 3 teams and wherever they go.
Yeah, it's the dominoes. I mean, listen, I might know a few things, you know. I might know a few things here or there, you know.
I must have you blocked on TeamSpeak because I don't know, my pokes are open. That's
you know. I'd rather tell you later, like on you know what I'm saying.
See, chat. Look, now I'm in the same boat as you guys. This
You know
guy's
what I
baiting.
mean?
This piece of shit's baiting me. This motherfucker.
All right, bro, I'll poke you, but just like your retirement, you can't tell nobody though. Just like
Oh yeah, of course, bro.
Just like your retirement, you can't tell.
Of course,
but,
I could just
All right,
Fuck this guy, bro.
All
See
right.
this shit, chat. This
Is
guy's
your
baiting me.
TS hidden? Is it hidden, bro?
Yeah, man, my TS is hitting, bro. Hitting. It's
All
hitting,
right,
bro.
All right.
Oh my god, I put that shit on the. No.
Yo, come on, bro. You're scaring me, bro.
Oh man.
Yeah,
That's funny. I don't think so.
You don't think so? Honestly?
No.
Scrap actually attainable? Who knows, bro? I don't know if Toronto's gonna give up Scrap. You know, like I don't know if Toronto will give up Scrap. I really don't know. You know, I do think whatever's going on in the Toronto camp though is confusing me though. It's confusing me a little bit because I was under the impression that they were trying to make money and trying to sell off players. But then at the same time, I don't see Envoy going there unless they keep all their superstar players, like unless they keep all their talent. And from my knowledge, I don't think that Envoy stuff is 100% through yet. From my knowledge, I don't think pen has been put to the paper yet when it comes to that stuff. It's a rumor. Obviously, there's been talks, and usually when these leaks come out, yes, they're true for the most part. But sometimes the leaks, you know, they do jump the gun a little bit with the leaks. You know, just because there's conversations with people doesn't mean that they're actually signing these people. But yeah, no, it is pretty interesting to think about.
So I think this is what might be holding things up at the moment, because FaZe possibly think they can get this deal done, and maybe they can. If they can't, they're probably going to be stuck with Sib. That isn't a bad option, but I don't think he's the best option. If they could get Scrappy, I mean, man, that team would be absurd on paper, right? The Tiny Terrors plus Cell plus Scrappy. Theoretically, he would fix some of their issues, especially in terms of pacing and roles. And I mean, like, it's perfect in terms of every dynamic in the role department, certainly. So, I mean, that team would be ridiculous. Sib is certainly good as well, but you can't blame FaZe trying to give this a go. So, Connor Chambers, former manager over at the Toronto Ultra side, actually turned on the Kick stream last night. And this has now been completely wiped off the face of the internet. So, unfortunately, we have no clips from this, but we do have some screenshots of what was said. And I'd actually heard about this before, and I wondered when it was going to get leaked. So, you know, I'm pretty sure this is true, that the Boston roster was meant to be Envoy, Snoopy, Ghosty, Slasher. That was the team of 4 proposed to Envoy when he was making the decision. So, and that's a pretty solid team. Now, I wouldn't expect that team to be great at the start of the year. I think they would take some time. I think Snoopy needs to kind of, you know, I think it's going to take Snoopy 6 months, really, maybe even an entire season, 2 seasons, to really get to the potential that he can be at. But I think he can get there. So by the end of the year, I think this team would be really good. Slasher, Ghosty, on paper, that's a great AR combination. Would be interested to see if that stays on Breach or whether that happens elsewhere, because they have kept Beans around. But, you know, maybe Beans drops down to the academy. Maybe they sell him elsewhere. Who knows if they were to go down this route. But this is the team that they proposed to Envoy, and he said, no, I prefer to go to Ultra. So, you know, that's quite the statement there, especially because this was more money as well. And that's certainly not a bad team at all, right? That should be a team that can challenge. But, yeah, Envoy effectively said no to this. But also, he mentions, Connor Clement in this stream, that Pred and Drazah pretty much confirmed to OpTic, Sib likely to FaZe. So, you know, all the rumours are emerging that, look, Sib to FaZe is going to be how it is pretty much at this point, and they're not going to be able to get Scrappy. But there is a chance they can do it, and they are apparently confident they can do it. Now, we've also got to mention the other things here, that Kismet's contract is also apparently up in the air along with Priestess. So, definitely, this is the other thing with FaZe, that Sib is probably the only option if they can't get Scrappy and if they can't get Priester, because I think Priester would actually be a really interesting one, but we don't know what's going on there with New York, so I wouldn't say anything is really set in stone yet, but it seems like OpTic, I think we've kind of got there on that one. This is the other crazy thing. Minnesota Rokkr last year paid total $1.8 million for their roster. That's buyouts plus salary. Crazy buyouts potentially even from Toronto last year, and then Attach was on a $400k contract apparently, so I mean, we knew that team was getting paid a lot of money, and we knew there were high expectations placed on them as a result, but that is pretty outrageous, you gotta say, right? Like, salary and buyouts to be 1.8 mil to spend on a team that got a couple of top threes for that sit. I mean, yeah, not great, and I imagine Rokkr are going to go down a rather different perspective this year, but still, those are the rumours that we had emerging last night. And also, Ronnie comments on this and says that in the replies here, that it's either cope from that FaZe camp or they live on Mars. So, you know, a lot of cope from that FaZe camp IMO, or they just live on Mars. So, point being that either they are really confident for no good reason they can get Scrappy, or they're just completely delusional and they think that they can get him. Because it seems like other people agree that they're either getting pulled along for a laugh here, or they're paying insane money. But then would Envoy go if that was still happening, and maybe Envoy is waiting to, you know, hovering the pen above the paper just until they can confirm to him that Scrappy's not getting sold, because, you know, would you want to go there and then 2 days later Scrappy gets sold to FaZe and you think, well, maybe I've made a slight error in judgment here. So as it stands, of the top 4 theoretical teams, these are still the most likely rosters, but it's definitely not confirmed. And this whole Scrappy to FaZe thing, because FaZe are probably looking at this OpTic team, they're looking at Drazah, they're looking at Pred, players that they probably would have been interested in some form or another, and now they're thinking, well, is Sib the best 4th option? He's not a bad backup option, but in the same way that Slasher wasn't their primary choice last season, there's a good chance that Sib is not their primary choice right now, and they are going to potentially pull all the stops out, right? Because, I mean, FaZe have a lot of cash. If they wanted to pay Scrappy the biggest buyout in CDL history and to give it to Toronto, they could probably find a way to do it. But would Toronto be steadfast and say, no, we're not selling selling him at any cost, which is possibly what could happen as well. So very much intrigued to your perspective in the comment section below. That is probably the big question right now that is holding a lot of these discussions up, because FaZe know full well that OpTic are forming a super team in some form or another, and you know, they will be looking to try and do the same thing as much as they possibly can. Just a couple of things to close out here. Thought this is pretty interesting. So Lionman's been coming out with the accuracy and others online only cards. Pretty, you know, it's kind of funny, right? So you do the overall season cards, then the online only cards. These are accuracies, overall online numbers. And Justin says, if Duke gets a spot next year, Friendship League, but I hope I don't, so I'm not sending your favorite team home again, right? Because he's got the OpTic Texas, you know, logo here, and accuracy has knocked out OpTic of champs the last couple of years in a row. So we'll see. I mean, this does definitely imply, but I hope I don't get a spot. Kind of implies that he's, you know, trying to get a spot, right? So we'll see. I think accuracy can definitely be still a valuable asset for many teams in the league. And if he wants to keep playing, then I hope it works out for him. But I just wonder, like I mentioned it yesterday, I think that if he was to, you know, get offered like 50k to play for a team that's going to be bottom 4, does he really want to do that, or does he want to go into coaching, right? So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.